if you're expecting to kill a bird with a really small kid, don't.
Well, I mean, you've tried with both of your kids several times, and I don't know if
I never succeeded.
Yeah. You think that's one of the hardest things to do, put a kid on a turkey on the ground?
Yes. In the open, having a small kid, somewhere from, I see people have kids out there at 5 years old now. Mine were in that 7 to 10 range, they're so fidgety and they like moving around and they're pointing. They'll see something, and it's like, when you're deer hunting, it's a little different, but, with turkeys, they see that. And they may not know what it is, but if you spook him, he's probably not coming over.
So don't get frustrated with them when they move and blow it up.
It's a good day if you heard or seen something with a kid.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Buck Junkie Podcast.
You missed it.
What'd I do?
You didn't do the hey.
Hey, welcome back. All right, guys. No, we're back at the office today. We got some storms fixing to roll through, so we figured might as well stay close to home instead of going to camp. What's happening?
It's raining now.
Raining and wind blowing.
Have y'all got over all the smoke? You washed it off and got it out of your head?
No. I blew black boogers last night.
Yeah. Burning something else now. That's what we're going to talk about today. We actually burnt all the ground we could burn last week.
Yeah. And some we didn't plan on burning. Yeah. Just small portions.
Small portions.
Small portions.
We got to put out. But today we're going to start off with a little bit of news. And for us, biggest news that I got is youth season turkey open Saturday.
I asked Malcom, I said, Michael. I said, you going this weekend? No, I'm going to go play golf. But I said, you rather play golf than go turkey hunting?
He's not going Saturday. I can't take him Saturday. I got to go judge a contest, and then I got to go out. Y'all are cooking.
Yeah, we're cooking a contest.
So that's going to knock me out of going. And then Sunday, we're going over to Arkansas. And then when we come back, he's on spring break. So we're going to be on a mission to get Michael a turkey before, when's it open here? 15?
15.
Oh, yeah, before then. Because then I ain't taking him.
He's
I can take him. He just ain't going to be quick enough to shoot that bird if he comes up there.
Sounds like I get a day off in spring break somewhere in there.
Yeah, you got the whole week, I guess.
I mean, that's a company holiday.
Yeah. But youth season does start for those that got kids and want to take them. You can go this Saturday. Oh, there was 4 or 5 grown men at the thing last night. Yeah, Michael need to get a bird.
We'll take him.
Yeah, we'll take him.
He don't even need a gun.
You get all the volunteers that come out of the woodwork wanting to find a kid that'll go with them.
So you think they want to find a kid to go with them to take them to their property, or you think they want to take the kid to the kid's daddy's property?
I think the whole idea is it gets you out in the woods and seeing you kind of scouting. Yeah, you ain't going to put them in all the hot spots, but you're going to get out there and you're going to see what's going on. That's kind of what me and Mikey did last year.
Yeah.
We skirted around where we knew the birds were.
Pretty much what you're saying is turkey hunting got gar holes too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Heck yeah, it does. You're never.
They probably doing about I heard this guy tell this one time, he guys in a mountainous range. So when those birds are gobbling way up on top of those mountains, he really don't want to go up there. He tells them, "Oh, that's a Jake. We ain't going to that."
Yeah.
That's what you do with a kid. You go up there and it's
Jake.
Oh, man, that's a good one.
Yeah, you can't say that to them though. Michael said, "I'll kill a Jake. I don't care."
Yeah, they can kill a Jake.
Yeah. I think one can be any size beard, right? Is that what the rule is?
It used to be that. Yeah,
I read them a few days ago. I think that's what it is. And then another thing in the news, we mentioned it last week, but we're going to keep mentioning it because they need teams to come cook, and it's the Beast and Brews Wild Game Cook-Off in Senatobia, Mississippi is going to be March the 29th, and they still have spots. They need some teams to cook, so if any of you guys think you know how to throw down on some wild game, y'all go down to Senatobia and sign up.
It's a good time.
It was fun. We did it last year. It was a lot of fun.
Just, man, I feel like we've gotten busy this year. Like this year's been a whole different animal.
Mikey we were sitting in the office this morning. He was worried. He was like, man, got so much going on at the farm now. It's like, we ain't got time. Cause we got a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's time. Winters, I think we're going to get some more freezing. I don't think we can put stuff in the ground yet, but
no. Well, when you start ordering stuff, I'm ordering a bunch of stuff now to get ready, and you start thinking about what all the work it takes to get that in the ground and get started. And so it kind of starts stressing you out a little bit, especially when it's still cold.
Don't feel right.
Mm-mm.
But that's the 2 things we got in the news coming up. Now, since we were talking about youth season going, Mark, you went and hung out with Jody.
Yeah.
Was it over the weekend?
No, it was yesterday. he come by the house. So two things, and I mentioned this earlier, I think, that he went to Sportsman Warehouse, and they didn't tell you till you got to the cash register. But once you got to the cash register with whatever you had, they reached up and pulled a balloon out, and they popped a balloon, and whatever percentage that balloon had in it said what you got off. So he went to Sportsman Warehouse, didn't know this was going on, bought a Mossberg 28 gauge turkey gun.
So was he buying a youth gun? Is that what?
No, this was just a slick gun, dude. I'll retract what I said last year about why you shooting 20 gauges and 410s. Dude, that gun felt so good.
Really?
It was it's slick. But anyways, he got up to the cash register. The lady pulled a balloon out and popped it 50% off. So he got that brand new Mossberg for half off.
Man, that's a heck of a deal.
I mean, that's a good deal any day of the
I
week.
don't have that freaking luck.
No,
Mine would have been
no.
you pay double.
I got lucky today. I went to the tire shop. I told Jamie, they quoted me like $400 something a tire yesterday. But when I was like, man, I don't want to pay $2,000 for these tires, but I had to have them. And got up there, and he's like, "Be $1,700." We had a buy three get one free promo, and he didn't tell me about that yesterday. I felt like I won.
I'm a week behind. I just bought tires for my wife's truck and daughter's last week. I could have used that discount.
You could have saved $800.
Yeah.
2 cents.
But
So he got that gun.
he got that gun, and then he bought, 3 or 4 different boxes of TSS for it to just see what it liked. And it come with the Mossberg choke, whatever that gun come with.
No special.
Nothing
TSS
special,
gun.
straight out the box. He put a red dot on it, and we got out there and got it sighted in with just some 7.5s, just some regular light load shells, just get it close. Because them TSSs, I ain't gonna lie, that is expensive, especially for 28 gauge. And shot it, when he first shot it with the bird shot, I was like, wasn't that impressive? It was still shooting it through the turkey choke, but I mean, it didn't look no tighter pattern than what an improved cylinder or modified be at 20 yards. I was like, oh crap. Man, he put that freaking TSS through there. That gun there is a beast. 50 yards it'll outdo my Benelli 3.5 12 gauge with XRs any day.
Really?
I mean, it's daylight and dark difference.
So is it light enough for a youth to shoot?
Oh, 100%.
Really?
It's a little bitty.
Yeah.
It's lightweight. I think it's a 18 or 20 inch barrel, pistol grip, and
Camo.
I mean, it's the good little turkey gun for the money,
What is it? A automatic?
Yeah, automatic. It's smooth, lightweight, feels good.
That's the same gun they had at the NWTF in a 410. I bet.
And he went and bought a 20.
410 sweet.
Yeah, it was sweet. So I was impressed. So we shot that. Once we got it sighted in, we shot the Ninjas
Apex.
And I think they were, and I may get this wrong, but I think they were 9s. And then we shot another TSS.
Was it Federal? The little gold box?
It was either Federal or Winchester. I can't remember. But it had the 9 and 10 combo. Did not like those. Did not like those at all. And then one more was the Rogue and 9s. Shoot. Them Apex and them Rogues, both in just a standard 9 shot, was unbelievable.
So you think that's a 50-yard gun?
Yeah, all day, every day.
Really?
There was not many pellets outside of the first
10-inch circle?
Yeah, 10-inch circle. I mean, it was in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't like the combo shots. We got to noticing that all your 9s would be on one side of the paper and all your 10s would be on the other. They would be above, like they would separate completely. It'd be 2 different groups almost. You'd have some mixing in the middle, but it's like it ain't like it's spread out evenly. Like you could easily see 10s was all right here and 9s were all right here.
Well, you think, this is just me thinking about that, different size shot in a shell. Are they not going to fly at different speeds?
I would think so.
So, they're bumping one another when they come out,
Yeah, a lot of people shooting the combos.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't.
Well, we bought some in steel shop.
I didn't like them in steel.
I didn't like them in steel.
I didn't like them either.
And to me, the 10s, they're too little for a turkey. I'm sorry. Like, when we flipped it over, you could tell a huge difference in the holes in the paper from just a 9 or a 10.
Mm-hmm.
The 9.5's done good, but the 10s, man, they were just like little needle holes. I'm sure it's a heavy shot and it'll kill the crap out of a bird, but looking at it on paper, there was a huge difference, So I think he ended up going with the straight 9s or the straight 9.5s in that 28 gauge. And
that still seems too little to me.
And it was smacking that target 40, 50 yards. I had a tomato cage out there stood up with a piece of cardboard zipped on it. It was putting a wallop on it,
At 20, I imagine it's pretty tight.
Yeah. 20 it is. He said his 20 gauge is definitely way tighter, a lot more shot. But he said, I mean, the 28 gauge, no doubt, outperformed my M2. But granted, my M2 was just shooting XRs. It wasn't nothing crazy. It's not a dedicated turkey gun. It was just one to get me by last year. But it was impressive.
So what about, so he also had a 410 because he's got a younger kid that he's going to try to put on a turkey too.
So most likely his wife, Rachel's going to shoot the 28 gauge. Well, she thinks she is. I think Jody's probably much finna take it over.
He liked it enough for him to want to hunt with it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's like I say, I think it would be a perfect little lightweight entry level gun that flat out performs.
So what do you think it weighs?
5.5 pounds.
Oh, that's light.
Maybe.
Yeah.
5.5, 6 pounds tops. Like
that's real light.
Super light. But he had a Stevens 301 single shot 410 that had a relatively long barrel, and he was running, I think, a Jeb's choking it, and then we shot the 2 or 3 different TSS out of it, and it was kind of the same thing. The mixed bag of like the 9s and 10 combos just didn't like them. It didn't perform as good. The straight 9s though, deadly. For 410, it was pretty impressive.
So you think a lightweight kid would have?
Oh yeah, I got a video right now of his boy John Lawson shooting it left-handed and smoked the target at 30 yards. Like, he's going to try to go this weekend, and if he does what he did on that video, it's a dead bird. It was very impressive, I'll say.
Make his mama mad if he gets one before she does.
I hope he does. Sorry, Rachel. You won't ever live that one down. You got to let the kid get one first.
Yeah.
You know, pattern of some of those guns, when you get those guns that are, you know, and I know 410 doesn't have as many pellets as 12 and 20 gauge do. When you start trying to pattern those down, one thing that you really want to be careful of is up close, because, you know, sometimes you do get birds at 15 yards.
Yeah.
And if that pattern is big as your fist, ooh,
you better be on it. And I think that's where a red dot comes into play, or a scope, you know, to where you're almost shooting a rifle at that bird at that point.
Oh, I'd have to.
Yeah, there's a lot of people miss it up close with a tight gun.
You showed me a video yesterday about that. That bird was in that guy's face.
Yeah.
And he smooth missed him. I mean, he was at the end of the barrel.
Not like a slug, pretty much.
Yeah,
it's not opening it up until it gets on out a little bit when you got them constricted that tight.
And you think, we were talking about this morning, I may be completely wrong on this, but a 410 being such a small diameter shell, it's naturally going to be a way tighter pattern because it's not starting out as big.
Mm.
And that don't sound like much when you're looking at a 410 to a 12 gauge, but what are you talking, 1/8 of an inch? So if you're moving your gun 1/8 of an inch, you know, like if you're shooting a deer rifle and you move it 1/8 an inch, it moves it, how many of 10 inches at 100 yards or whatever, for example. Well, same thing with the 410. It's so close together already. It's going to be a tight freaking pattern. It's more of in a line, like a shot string versus a shot pattern at that point.
Yeah, we were toying around with shells and different, you know, loads and things like that at one time. And a buddy of mine, he was trying to get his gun to hit that 60-yard mark, and he did. He got it to do that with different loads and different choke combinations and stuff. But that gun at 15 and 20 yards it would just rip. It would tear the head off the turkey. It was so tight, and he missed one. That same year we went out, and I was like, that's a little tight up front. You know, we get birds in at 20 and 30 yards sometimes, so you got to be on him, you know, and you think about that bird moving. If he's not just, because a lot of times they're not just standing there just posing.
Like a target.
Yeah. So his head is moving as he's walking, and you get him to stop and you get him to run his head up. I mean, if he moves at any point and you fire that shot where you thought where his head was and now it's down, yeah, you just missed him.
I think, which I may be late to the game on this, but I think the next big fad is going to be these over and under turkey guns. Mm-hmm. Like, we looked at one in NWTF, and you could run a modified choke in the bottom barrel and a turkey choke in the top, and it had a switch on the back. And I was like, that's pretty slick right there.
Well, that got me to thinking about your side-by-side. Could you run it like that? And you got a close-range shell, and you know that your other one's kind of your distance.
Yeah, you can have different choke tubes in there, and, you know that I've got one that'll, you know, it performs out, you know, 50 plus yards. You know, I can get out to 60 if I need to, but then have one, you know, you just have to remember to flip that switch.
Get your switch backwards.
So when it comes to taking a kid, like how many steps are you trying to get that turkey? Because you know,
kid,
yeah. Because I mean, I
want him close especially like Jody's kids. You know, they're smaller kids, so you know, I don't know how they respond to, like, when the bird's up there, you know, you get to breathing hard and stuff like that. I don't really want a kid shooting out there at 50 yards.
Yeah.
I don't.
I'd say 30 yards.
I don't need to be shooting 50 yards.
Yeah, I mean, 50 yards it's a stretch. You killed one this year that was, you know, about 50, a little over 50 steps, and I didn't want you shooting then. But, I mean, you did anyway. So,
That's
you know, I was nervous as crap. I was like, boom. And you done fired the shot. And I was like, doggone.
They ripped down through there and got him, huh?
Yeah, it got him. But, you know, it's different when they're walking through those woods and those thickets and things, and their heads are moving. And, you know, that's a tough shot. And it's really a tough shot for a kid.
So, you probably taken more kids than any of us. What do you like? What kind of gun do you put them on?
I mean, whatever they're comfortable with. I mean, I want them to be, it's the same way with deer hunting. Whatever they're comfortable with shooting, you know, and I used to keep a youth model 20 gauge, an 870, a little short. I mean, it was really short. That's what I started. I bought it for Will when he was younger. I actually bought it before they were even born and kept it because I was taking so many kids. I had Brandon, one of our cousins. He's, I don't know how old. Brandon's probably
he grown now.
Yeah, he's bigger than all of us.
Back then, I was taking him sometimes, and he was 10, 11, 12 years old. He went with me a few times, you know, and I couldn't give him my gun, but I'd give him a little short 20 gauge. It had like a 18, 20-inch barrel. The stock was really short, and that's what I had him shooting.
Just like number 6s?
It was like whatever I could get the pattern through the gun. It wasn't TSS. It was like, you know, a Winchester XX, you know, turkey load or something like that. You know, number 6, 4, 5, or 6, just whatever the pattern the best in.
Was you a 20 gauge mark when you started out as a kid?
No, I was shooting a Benelli Nova 3.5-inch 12 gauge.
Ooh, that's a little much there for
and it's
a youth.
But I mean, it'd kill a bird, you know.
Yeah.
And that was that was the first shotgun I bought my whole money. So that was my shotgun. Mm-hmm. And
so you weren't a youth.
Yeah. I mean, I was probably 12, 13, you know.
That's still considered.
But like Mikey was saying, I mean, I was thinking about that yesterday. Back then, if you shot a Kicks, Goblin, Thunder, Choke, and Winchester number 5s, you had the baddest shotgun in the woods. Yeah. I mean, that was the working combo.
And a Mossberg.
Yeah, and a Mossberg. Like,
that was the turkey.
It was one of them things. If you had that, you had the ultimate setup. And now, I don't think there's a limit on the ultimate setup now because the technology. I mean, you can spend as much as you want now, and get it to where it's freaking deadly.
Oh yeah, it ain't nothing to put $2,500 on a dedicated turkey gun. If you want to, you don't need to.
Yeah, I've seen guns pattern with a $20 choke tee really good, and like a True Glow. I've seen them go in a certain type gun and outperform somebody that had a $200 choke tube.
Let me see what that
$5 gun.
Yeah.
It just depends on the combination you got. I mean, there is a combination out there for your gun. Is how much money you want to spend trying to figure it out.
So, do you think it's important that if you're going to take a kid hunting, you've got to put them on a target, let them shoot that gun, see how they do, see how it patterns with them shooting it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not going to say I wouldn't let them. It depends on how hard the gun kicks because you don't want them scared of the gun. And them turkey lows do thump. I mean, they thump. But yes, you want to practice. I mean, like with my kids, I made them sit down. And some of the kids that went with me, I made them sit down and on their butts with their knee up and hold the gun, you know, for a period. It's almost like training them, you know, like you would, you know, doing for football or basketball or anything like that. It's the same thing. Like they have to, you can't just pick the gun up when the turkey shows up. You got to get the gun up, hold it I've held one for 20 minutes and before I got a shot. So, you know, you got to teach them how to do that and sit still long enough to kill the bird.
That was kind of my next thing on here. When it comes to hunting with a kid and you're trying to get these turkeys in close and movement is everything, had you rather have that kid in a blind versus sitting out under a tree or in some cover?
Yeah. I mean, now I prefer, now with the things they have now, you know, like you got bog pods, and I'm sure there's some other pods out there, you know, bracing systems that you can use to keep the gun still for the kids. That helps a lot. You know, that's kind of hard to do when you're sitting down on the ground. You can't have them in a chair. You can't have them in a chair. Sitting in the chair with one of those pods, you know, so they don't really have to hold the gun on their knee or anything like that. Because that's a hard thing to do for me, you know, sit there with that gun on your knee for a long period of time. It's not easy.
At least for a big guy, it's hard.
Yeah. So I mean, you just multiply that when you got a kid. But yes, I prefer to have them in some kind of blind, or even if it's a mobile pop up, one of those little fan blinds that you put up in front of you, just anything to keep the bird from seeing them move around.
Yeah, because
kids,
they're
kids, they're gonna move.
That's like
a simple brush top, just back up in it.
Yeah.
I was looking at that gun. That Mossberg is $759 at Sportsman Warehouse right now.
He got it for half price.
He got it half price.
Man, that's a steal.
So, like, I would put that gun, no joke, like, if you was getting started and wanted to go buy a youth gun or adult gun, you ain't going to go wrong. Like, I seen it in person. It'll flat shoot.
How hard is it to find 28 gauge turkey loads?
That I'm not sure. I asked him. He said he bought a few. He went ahead and when he found them, he bought a few.
I think it's like the 410. It's picking up so much now. Pretty much your main.
I mean, I found it on Midway.
Yeah, I think it's going to be easier to find like in a turkey load because so many people are going to that with the TSS. Now, I don't think you're going to go find some 28 gauge heavy load 6 rabbit shot. That might be a little tricky, but I guess you could shoot some TSS at a rabbit too. You could afford it.
Man, that'd be expensive rabbits.
They got one in stock.
Was there, before we get off the youth stuff, since it's coming up, any other equipment or anything you think we need to have for youth hunts?
I can
tell people.
With me, I've never been a diehard turkey hunter by no means, but just last year, that little red dot on the end of your barrel will flat cover turkey up at 50 yards.
So
I'm all for
red dot.
The red dot or scope, either one.
I think it makes a difference. I wasn't sure I was going to be a fan of the red dot because I've never been able to see through them, but the one Jody had yesterday, I could actually see pretty dang good through.
Yeah, me and Brad looked through, the Leupold was super, super nice. Looked through it, and I think it was a Vortex, and it was pretty nice, too. I don't know which one he ended up getting, but.
I don't know.
What's your thoughts on the optic on a turkey gun for a kid?
I've never used one.
I think it takes some adjustment for sure as far as getting used to.
Well, when optics first came out, I mean, I looked through some of them. They're way more advanced now, and I wasn't crazy about them back then, and so I just never really went to it. But now they've come so far now. Yeah, I mean, it probably would be easier for a kid with an optic, than shooting just straight off the top of the gun.
I've seen some negatives from them. I mean, batteries can go dead. You can forget to turn it off, or, I mean, it can get knocked off, or there's pros and cons of it. Yeah. I mean, does it help you visually? Probably so.
I'd have to go
it's working optimally
with the scope itself. I think.
Yeah.
Because for that reason, it's the crosshairs ain't gonna go dead.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, like looking through a red dot, I feel like if you were like hunting in the pines, if it was a little dark, it's going to be darker through that glass looking through that red dot than your naked eye. To me, it may not be, but just looking at it.
Yeah, because some of those scopes, what was the scopes that Fate was running on the muzzleloaders back in the day? Those were some kind of red dots.
They were red dots. That thing sucked so bad.
I know, but if it was like way dark and you looked through it, it would just light the whole thing up. You couldn't see
glowing red, so
it
you
was
couldn't
glowing
see
red, so it had to have some kind of light.
Mikey, that was in 1994.
I know. That's back when I started.
I do know they have dimmers and you can adjust.
That was 30 years ago.
Technology has definitely gotten better on them. But
still,
it's something you need to get. Don't go out for the first time, put a red dot on your thing, and go out and try to hunt with it, and you ain't used it. I mean, it's one thing to get it sighted in, but you need to.
And it is tricky
practice
sighting
in a hunting situation
because it's not like you got one bullet to. It ain't like shooting a rifle. You got one hole to move. Like you're moving a pattern, and if you've never looked at a red like a pattern on a piece of cardboard, it's not just the center ain't always what you think the center is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're talking about equipment and stuff like that for kids. Make sure you get a backpack, something comfortable for them to sit in or sit on, because if they're going to fidget it regardless of whether they're comfortable or not. But if they're not comfortable, they're really going to be I hate to say this, but a burden to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you're expecting to kill a bird with a really small kid, don't.
Well, I mean, you've tried with both of your kids several times, and I don't know if
I never succeeded.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got birds up there. I mean, I've got them in, around them and stuff like that. But it's just one of those things, man. It's they're real slick, so they see movement and they get spooked. Mm-hmm. It's over.
You think that's one of the hardest things to do? Put a kid on a turkey on the ground?
Yes,
where you're sitting
in the open. Yeah. Having a small kid, somewhere from. I mean, I see people have kids out there at 5 years old now. Mine were in that 7 to 10 range, yeah, I mean, they're so fidgety and they like moving around and they're pointing. They'll see something, and it's like, when you're deer hunting, it's a little different, but, with turkeys, and they see that, and they may not know what it is, but if you spook him, he's probably not coming over.
So don't get frustrated with them when they
Don't
move and blow it up.
It's a good day if you heard or seen something with a kid.
Yeah.
It's a good day because they're excited.
If you can get out there and get one to gobble at you and they get a glimpse of it, that's a win.
Bring plenty of snacks and water. I've not brought snacks before, and that's busted the hunt up.
It sounds like all the stuff you need to do for us.
That's why my vest weighs 40 pounds. I got one bullet and rest of snacks.
Yeah, you got to keep
all the necessities.
Yes.
You got to keep in mind they're still kids. They like eating snacks and things like that. So just don't get frustrated with them. Just have fun at it.
Yep, that's it. That's what it's all about. Teach them a little something, and hopefully y'all have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stay too long. You're gonna get them. They're gonna get bored.
Yep.
You can go sit one out.
Take a fishing pole with you.
Have a backup plan. Have a backup plan when you go youth hunting.
That's right. Because
crappie may be biting.
Still try to locate turkeys while they're brim fishing or bass fishing on the pond.
It is a great time of year. Them crappie get to biting and turkeys get to gobbling.
Fish spawning.
I love springtime. I love it.
It's kind of like it's like the fall time for deer season, but it's kicking off.
Yeah, it's kicking off, and then everything's new. You're getting the new growth. You're getting new green up, and everything's coming back, and it ain't got hot yet. You ain't just sweating the whole time and fighting mosquitoes yet.
Oh,
it's coming. That's coming.
I got pretty hot Friday, but that was from the fire.
Yeah, that's our main topic today. Fire. Prescribed burn. Is that what y'all call it? Is it prescribed burn, or controlled burn, or
either one? Controlled burn, prescribed burn. Yeah.
So we've kind of been leading up to this for the past few podcasts, talking about how we were doing prep for it. But I really wanted to talk about today about what we did, what our plan was, what we did, who helped us. I mean, we didn't do this we're not professionals at forestry fire management or whatever. So let's talk a little bit about that. Well,
it's not just go out there and light it on fire.
No,
that's what most people think, and it's not nowhere near that level.
Well, I think it's just a lot of people that don't really know what you're doing.
They think of a fire they think of a forest fire that you see on news.
We've been taught all our lives not to start forest fires. Y'all think of Smokey the Bear when we was little. Yeah. Don't flick out cigarettes. Don't leave a campfire.
And still don't do that.
Yeah, you don't do that. Yeah. That's all stuff. But this is not the kind of fire. I mean, we're doing a controlled or prescribed fire, and it's the fire to prevent all this stuff, really.
Yeah, I mean, you call it a prescribed fire, but it's a controlled burn. So you have wind conditions, and we talked about this briefly before, but you're looking for those ideal conditions that fire is going to perform the way you want it to perform, and it's not going to it has a less likely chance to get away from you. That's what you're looking for. Wind speeds, barometric pressure, humidity, just wind direction, things like that. Because you have to come up with a burn plan.
So what is a burn plan?
So that's what I'm sitting there looking at now. I mean, you got everything from what your fuel conditions are. It's like a lot of fuel on the ground or light fuel on the ground. And you got to do, that's where Rob come in handy with all the temperature, the wind condition, I guess barometric pressure and all that kind of stuff plays a factor.
Mixing heights. I didn't even know what a mixing height was.
What is a mixing height?
I still don't know. It's where the smoke mixes with the atmosphere.
Okay.
And so, I mean,
it was low Saturday.
Yeah.
So you have to develop this burn plan to take all those conditions into mind.
Yes.
To the scope of what you're going to burn is part of it.
You're telling them the property. You're telling them the location of the property, how much property. You're pretty much putting on there. You have to go in between a certain wind speed. You have to tell the Forest Service this is what we're doing. In between this wind and this wind.
Who determines that?
Well, it
burn
tells
manager?
The burn manager does that, but he's got a certain speed of wind that you really don't want to be messing around with.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So once it gets up over that, you really don't, because it however fast that wind's moving is how fast that fire can move. Not saying it will, but it can.
Mm-hmm.
You put it in sage grass, it will move that fire. That fast.
Burning open fields and wind gets behind it, it'll go, son. I mean, it'll get out of hand fast.
So you get this burn plan together, and then you have to turn it in to the Forestry Commission to get an approval or permit or something?
You fill it out. You get it notarized. You're good for 30 days once you get it notarized. And they look at the burn plan and pretty much tell you, okay, you're good to go. And you got 30 days to execute that plan. But you have to execute it within those parameters that you told them that you were going to do it in. Mm-hmm. So you can't just go out there and start whenever you get ready. You have to wait till the stars align there, and that's when you can go do it.
Well, one thing, so we hired Rob Hoff, and that's, I guess, Jamie, you were buddies with him first. You met him out at the Corps.
Yeah, went down to Corps,
doing the physically challenged hunt. But he's full time. He's been on the podcast before. I think was it last year or year before?
He's been a couple times.
But he does a lot of this type forestry management for the Corps of Engineers at Arkansas Lake. But he also, on the side, he does prescribed burns. It's kind of his side job.
He has a lot of experience.
Yeah, he has a ton of it, and he trains people too, I think, to do that. But that's who we hired. And so what I noticed when Rob come out that morning, he said, I got to wait till 8 o'clock. He's got to call it in. I didn't know he had to call somebody to get that permit authorized to go that day, I guess.
Yeah.
And is that just letting them know? So if calls
let
start
them know
coming
we're
in,
doing it today, so they know it. They alert the fire departments in the area and things like that. Like, hey, if you get calls on this,
there's a record of it.
There's a record that these guys are burning this 100-acre block over here or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We should have included the neighbors on that call.
Well, that was something that I put on here because it was like things to do when you're going to do a fire. And I think that is important because and you did let some of the neighbors.
I did let some of the neighbors know, yes.
But we had
the ones I had contacts to.
Man, I don't know how many calls I got that Saturday. I was like, man, y'all need help. We're on the way. You know, there's something. Is that in our fields? You know, people don't know. They start seeing smoke. Well, like Mark, you said you talk about those California fires. People, that's fresh in the news.
Yeah.
People see that, and there's homes burn up, and there's all this stuff. So there's always a chance that something could go wrong. And I guess I don't understand the panic. That's why it's important to probably communicate with the people in your area where you're going to burn. And we'll probably do a better job of that next time.
Well, they also like, I don't know if it was Tate County or Panola or what county released it wasn't a burn ban, but it was
a red flag burn warning.
Yeah. They recommended not burning for recreational. So like, don't start a campfire with your kids to roast marshmallows. Like it was stuff like that. So we didn't start a campfire. No. We started a fire. Yeah. But I mean, we done everything by the book.
Yeah.
But that's something, you know, you don't also like letting your neighbors know is great, but you're still going to get those calls because I rode 5 miles down the road and
still smoked out.
It was still smoky, you know, because I mean, we're burning a lot. So you're going to have the negative side of it regardless.
Man, people need to, and like you said, we brought up as this being a bad thing. Mm-hmm. But I mean, once you get the right mindset and research it and see the benefits of it, I mean, it's definitely worth doing on your property.
I think so too. Well, what was our timeline like? So we knew we had two properties. They were probably, I don't know, 1.5 miles, 2 miles apart, something like that.
And 2 properties in pretty much 2 days, pretty much.
Yeah. We did one property one day and then another one the next day. But, our timeline, you want to wait as far as that day. You have to wait till, you know, a certain time to be able to, let people know, let the proper authorities know that we're going to do it. We're going to execute this plan today. Anyways, so you alert them. They don't get to work till 8 o'clock. So
is that where the 8 o'clock came in?
That's
nobody's there,
but you still don't. You know, depending on what kind of moisture has fell that night. Also, if you go out like we were burning fields, and then if it was just wet, really really wet, we would have struggled trying to get that going. Mm-hmm. And then eventually through the day, it would have changed and everything evaporated off the ground, and it would have went from a slow burn to a fast burn. It would have changed conditions really quick on us. So you want to wait till on up in the day about 9. We waited till about 9:30 or 10 before we started doing anything.
Was there a reason that we started with the open fields first because of the moisture content, and then later on in the day it would have been drier?
Yeah. So we started with the the grass fields because they
Way more volatile.
They're way more volatile. And once you light those, and then we had grass that was up to chest deep in some places. And once you light those, you still want to be able to control that thing because there's little embers and things popping and going around, in the air. It's real easy to catch another grass field on fire when the wind is whooping around pretty good. So we waited till, we did that one first. Friday was the wind was, me and Rob went out and checked the wind. He's got this little gadget that's got a little fan in it, and it checks the wind speed. We got the direction of the wind, and how fast it was running, and, decided, we need to start burning from this angle here, coming back burning. So
that's where you start a fire on the backside?
That's where you start your fire. So if you got a southwest wind, which is what we had that morning, we had a southwest wind, we lit the fire on the northeast corner. So we went to the northeast corner of the property and lit the fire down there. And what you do is you start lighting about 50, 100 yards. It's depending on, all of them's different. This is not a definite thing to do on every situation, but we lit about 50, 100 yards on that northeast corner in two different kind of directions. Let that start burning in real, real slow because the wind's in your face. You're standing there and you're eating all that smoke when you first light it.
I think I was on downwind side both days.
It was covering you up.
Man.
So you let that burn back in far enough, we let it go back in probably 30 yards. Let it get back in about 30 yards. And once we did that, we went ahead and lit the rest of the backing fire on down. Just kept watching it, walking, light it, watch it for a minute, make sure it's going back in. Light it, watch it. It's a slow process getting the back burn going.
So what kind of equipment are you using for all this, folks that don't know?
So we got what they call a drip torch. Is what we're lighting with.
So I wore your shirt today.
I should have.
So it's like a metal canister. It's got a diesel and gas mix in it. It's like 2-to-1 diesel to gas. And then it's got a little spiral tube that comes out the top. And
like a P-trap.
Yeah, it's got on the end. It's got like a pad that holds. It's almost like a
wick.
It's like a wick.
It's like a lantern or something.
Yeah, you light it, and it takes a second to get it hot and get it lit, and then it's got the little tube comes up to the end of it, and it spits out the fuel, and it just drips off the end of it. Or you can open the air valve up, and it'll shoot it out.
That's how Mark runs his.
Shooting.
I didn't have no trouble lighting.
But anyways, that's what you use to light it with. And then we had these, I guess you call them snuffers is what I call them. But it's looks like a piece of a mud flap.
On a pole.
On a pole. Yeah.
Big fly swatter.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just flap it down and you kind of rub it back and forth and snuff out the fire as you start lighting. Mm-hmm. You have to get that line, that back line established before you ever light that head fire. Because you don't want that getting away from you.
And what that's creating is Mikey and Will already disc up, had the perimeter, and that just gives you extra buffer, to get that fire coming back.
It doesn't have any fuel for it to go.
Right.
So it just kind of burns together and puts itself out.
I think that's something people, like your normal people, don't think about. Is like once that fire burns, it can't burn again.
Yeah.
So once you get that established, we were riding around, and Emily's like, well, you're not worried about it in the middle of the woods? I said, no, it's surrounded by what it's already burned. It can't go nowhere.
There's no fuel for it.
Yeah, there's no fuel for it to burn.
You're creating like a safety barrier is what you're doing. You're creating a safety barrier where once you on the downwind side to keep the fire from getting away from you. Not to say it still won't. It's been, anything can happen, but that's really maximizing your safety aspect of it.
So what's the biggest danger in it? Is it not the stuff that's on the ground? It's the flying stuff?
The stuff that flies around in the air. Yeah.
That, or we had several dead trees that was on the outside edge, and you want them cut down and pushed back into your fire, because if it falls during the night or whatever, you're just creating another
that
fire.
Was one thing I didn't really think about, was like how important it would be to ride the area the perimeter where you're going to burn, and look for those dead trees, because anything that's going to fall outside your fire break can jump.
Yeah.
So you need it to be pushed back onto the inside.
We probably cut 10, 15 trees.
Yeah.
And had one get away. That was the big tree. There's a pretty big tree there on the road that jumped, and you didn't even see where it jumped. It had to be some leaves.
Well, you don't expect those to really catch on fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You blow some leaves back away from them, try to keep the fire away from them, but there ain't, when you light it, you don't think about, a tree that you can't get your arms around catching on fire, or the inside of it catching on fire.
I don't think of them as being hollow. You don't realize how
There's a lot of hollow trees.
Yeah, and what that does, it acts like a stovepipe.
Yeah, you got a fireplace going.
You got to think, if you got that air pushing and it's got a hole at the bottom and it's got some kind of outlet hole, it could be halfway up the tree in an old knot. It could be at the top of the tree, but that air is just cycling up through there. So when that fire gets going, it's feeding itself. There ain't no, and I don't know if you can really put them out. We never were successful.
No.
You just cut it down and let it sit there and burn itself.
I'll bet that one's still burning.
Yeah.
Well, y'all went through there at night one night, and there was one that was on the internal still burning, and it looked like
that was one that got struck by lightning.
Yeah. We had one that lived through it last year. It did the same thing last year. I was like, well, that tree's going to die. It's a great big old oak tree. Boy, it put back out. Did it again this year, and I don't know if it's going to continue to keep living.
Yeah.
This year had a pretty big one in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to cut your trees are not dead. They just have hollow spots in what we call den trees. Most of the time coons, squirrels, and things get in them. But the fire will get up kind of close to those, and you don't see them. And the hole may be on the backside from where you rode, and it looks like a live tree. And then the next thing you know, 30 minutes into the burn, you got fire jumping out of it 15 foot up. It's coming out of a knot hole.
Well, one thing I noticed is it gets in the ground. I guess
get in there
air pockets or the way the roots create cavities in the ground, and there must be fuel or something for it in there for it to burn. But there was fire just coming up out of the ground in places.
Old root system and stuff.
What did you, Mark, tell me about that guy on the?
That was Jamie.
Was it how the guy cut down a stump and he was going to burn the stump, and he caught his whole yard up under the ground, stayed on fire?
Yeah, I think it's probably more to that story than what that guy was telling. I think he done poured some gas or something on it.
Yeah, but it got in the ground. It was just burning underground. The fire department said, ain't nothing we can do. You had to let it burn.
Yeah,
you don't think about that, being able to
don't.
get up under something, and burn. So there's all kinds of things it's you got to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
There's
a lot of trees that'll catch that, especially when we're in that pine thicket, you really couldn't see them because they were kind of behind the rest of the pines. But once they lit up, they started catching on fire. You've seen them, and then you're like, okay, we got to either nudge that one over or cut it down. And so, once we lit the fire and they were burning and stuff, we waited till everything burned out, go in there with a saw or a tractor and just push the thing over or cut it down.
So as far as manpower on our burn, for example, how many people do you need for a job like this? Because we had some help. We had our friends with Po Things Barbecue. They're from Greenwood, Mississippi. Daniel Smiley and Brad. Yeah. They came up. They wanted to observe because they have a pine plantation that they've been a part of burning some. They wanted to see how we were doing compared to theirs. But so talk about the people that you like. It ain't a 1 or 2 man job.
No, I'd say you need, minimum, if you're just going to drop a match on 10 or 20 acres, you need 3 or 4 people there.
Yeah.
We pretty much had somebody watching the whole perimeter, backside, both sides, and Mike and Rob be on the head
I don't know
side.
if it's a head count per acre, you would say, but you need to be able to cover the ground.
Because every situation is different. So, I would say, minimum of 5.
Yeah.
4 to 5 people, because you got one guy lighting or 2 guys lighting. Somebody needs to be walking with them because they're lighting backing fire. So you need, 1 to 2 people with each one of them walking with them, and watching that, that back burn, making sure nothing's getting across and keep an eye on that. And once that gets done, as you go around the rest of it, you got to have people just checking the perimeters, watching for trees that are catching on fire, different things like that. You're babysitting that thing. So
you need eyeballs.
You need eyeballs on it.
Yeah, it ain't always, but a lot of times it's in the smoke though, because of the way the winds go, and that's what I noticed. And that's, to me, the hardest part was eating all that smoke.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of times you're in it; it's so thick you can't see anything.
Yeah,
and you could get disoriented, and you could get choked. I think all y'all got on the ground.
I got on the ground once.
Did you? You were on the ground, weren't you, Mike?
I was on the ground for a while at one point.
Yeah. Did you ever had to take cover, Jamie?
I got in the tractor.
You got to practice. I got side by side, had the full enclosure. Yeah. That was my job. We stomped out a little bit, but me and Brad were watching, and that's what I picked up on. It's like when y'all start those backing fires, it's not like you stay there and hang out with it. So you've lit a fire, and often you're moving, especially Rob. Mm-hmm. Rob's taking off.
Yeah. I was like mine and watching mine in certain areas.
Yeah, and I did notice it, but we were a little more worried or precautious or just cautious. Yeah,
because I'd seen what, you know,
it could do.
It could do really fast.
But you needed those people in areas to kind of watch.
Mm.
And what we were doing is we were trying to get in the place where we could see that back and fire, but also see if it was going to jump out somewhere, that's probably where it was going to happen. And then you run over and stomp it out.
Yeah, the grass is bad, but when you light a pine thicket that's never been burned, and you know it's real dense with pine needles,
a lot of fuel.
There's a lot of fuel and a lot of freaking smoke.
So we had 3 different types of areas. We had open pasture, we had some hardwoods, and then we had some pine. It was set out pine, but it had never been burned. And so y'all talk about the differences in those 3 types of land that we were trying to control.
I don't like the hardwoods.
Yeah, the hardwoods.
The hardwoods to me is the hardest to burn.
The hardwoods with the wind that, you know, that we were dealing with that day was, and the terrain. If we would have been burning in a flat bottom, it would have been different. But you know, we got some hilly terrain out there where we're burning. So the wind swirls. It'll come out. You be standing on lightning on top of a ridge somewhere, and it's pushing back in real good. Or, you know, I'm sorry, the wind's coming in your face real good, and you're lighting that back and fire. And all of a sudden, you know, the next thing you know, wind hits you in the side of the face, and you're like, where did that come from? Well, that wind is just running those ridges and, you know, banking off of different things, so it'll swirl at times. Mm-hmm. And when you're lighting those back and fire and those leaves pick up really easy.
On fire.
And you look up and there'll be a tornado in front of you spinning around with fire and leaves in it, and it will carry them across, you know, your fire breaks.
The good thing about leaves is they burn a lot slower than the grass. Like if grass would jump like leaves do, grass would be sketchy as crap burning.
Yeah.
Because you can't outrun it. You're not going to get in front of it and put it out. You know, you just got to let the grass burn until you get to a stop point. And that's kind of what we did when we did have that one jump. That's what it was. It was some hardwood leaves that it just picked it up and it blew it right over in the sage grass. And it was on our property. We wasn't terribly concerned, but we need to get ahead of it. And once it got to the woods and the leaves, it slowed down, and we just got in front of a leaf blower and circled it with a leaf blower, and it's good to go, you know.
Mark was out there in the middle of the grass with a leaf blower.
Yeah, we were fighting.
His eyeballs are so big when it jumped that road. He was like, "What do we do?" I was like, "Just let it burn on through the grass, and it'll hit the woods. It'll slow down in a minute."
You got to let it get to the woods.
He had that freaking leaf blower going.
Well, I wasn't sure. We had that brand new Monarch stand right there. I was like,
"Yeah, you don't want it to burn up.
We're gonna try to do what we can."
Was that at the pond?
Yeah. But I'm gonna tell you, that fire's hot. When you put that big leaf blower on it, it gets real hot.
It does.
So the leaf blower that Mark was using, what you do is, as the fire is running, you can take the leaf blower and blow it back the opposite direction, you know, and break down
It'll put the fire out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will, as long as you hold it there long enough. But, you know, when you got 30 yards of it burning
around you.
You're trying to blow fuel away from it.
You're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah.
You just let it go until you can get to a point where you can stop it.
The grass burns way faster, but it's kind of like the pines. Like even when the wind blows, you're not blowing a lot of ambers around. You might be blowing a lot of smoke, but it's not a lot of fuel floating in the air. Whereas the leaves, I mean, there was all like constant. You always had leaves floating.
To me, the open ground is easier to burn because you can get a clear dirt around it, and you don't feel like it's going to get away from you like those blowing leaves and trees falling. Because, like you said, it burns hot and it burns fast, but it's a quick. Like you can burn that field. When you set it on fire, I don't think it took but maybe about an hour to burn the whole ground.
It took us about 45 minutes, somewhere in that range, just to get the back and fire burnt back in and get it circled around to where we felt comfortable lighting a head fire on it.
And then it just ripped through.
And then once you get that going and you've got, you know that you've got everything out. Don't leave until you know you've got it out. Sit with it. Have somebody sit with it. Just, post up a couple guys there and say, hey, stay here. Watch it. Once you got that established, you should be okay as long as your wind direction don't change. Mm-hmm. So you constantly checking your wind direction, making sure, it's important. Watch smoke blow by you. Make sure it's still coming because wind changes throughout the day. Maybe southwest, and then the next thing you know, it's coming out of the southeast.
And that's just going to change where you do start your back and fire, right? You're always, depending on that wind is where you're going.
So once if you still got the same wind, you're not in a hurry to get it lit, to get the head fire going. But you don't want that wind changing on you either throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because everybody that deer hunts or does any kind of hunting or fishing knows, the wind will change throughout the day, especially if you got a front coming in like we had.
To me, the easiest was the pines.
Yeah.
To me, that was my favorite thing to burn.
So what was the difference in it versus the hardwoods? Because it was a lot. To me, there was a lot of fuel because there's a lot of fuel hung up in the pine tree.
It burned. It was a quick burn. It didn't. To me, the leaves just took so long to.
Yeah.
Well, needles burn faster, you think?
I think it just had so much fuel around it, they had no choice but to burn fast.
Now we had two different winds.
Yeah, we had some good wind for pines.
Yeah.
So when we lit the hardwoods, we had about a 8 to 12 mile an hour wind, which was within our parameters. We had maximum I think it was 15 or 18 mile an hour wind, something like that was our maximum wind. And we were on the middle side of that when we started that morning, and it didn't really pick up that day. It kind of stayed consistent. But with the wind, with the leaves and stuff like that, it was a lot slower, and we were down in those valleys and ridges. And then when we got to the pines that morning, our wind was about 15 miles an hour when we started, and
it went up from there.
That last burn,
I don't know how fast it got up through the day.
It was like
we had
28.
already lit it, and there was no going back.
Yeah.
There was no stopping it, and it probably hit 25.
Oh, in the field it did, but you could go 20 yards in them pines and it was dead calm.
It broke
all the wind. I think if we didn't have any wind that day, we would have fought that all day trying to get it to
It's
burn.
been a completely different burn.
So you do need some wind.
Yeah.
It don't need to be still.
Oh, you remember the first time we tried to burn the dove field, we waited on a day where it was no wind,
and
we couldn't make that field burn.
Mm-hmm.
And that next year when we got wind, oh crap, it burns real good now.
Yeah, so the pines, was it a more intense fire than the hardwoods since it had so much fuel caught up in the trees?
It was more intense fire, mainly because of the wind, I think, and the amount of fuel that was on the ground. It was real intense when we first lit it, like you were saying. We lit that back and fire, and the wind was blowing hard. So it was struggling at first. And everybody's, if you've been at a campfire or something, everybody's always scooped up a big armload of pine needles, throwed it on the campfire.
It just goes smoking, smoke bomb.
It smolders, and it just smolders and smolders, and then all of a sudden, whoop, it goes. So the fire was fighting, trying to burn up those pine needles.
Mm-hmm.
So it was heavy, heavy, heavy smoke. It was. You had to be careful because you could have. It'd been real easy to get smoke inhalation, and I'm sure we got some of it. Because we had me and Rob had masks on because we were lighting, so we were in the thick of it. And anyway, so there were times when I laid down in a low spot in the ditch. It was so intense, not the fire, the smoke, just trying to get out of it because it was so thick. I just couldn't see. My eyes were watering.
Well, it did swirl bad that day. It was 1 minute you'd be clean out of the smoke, and 5 seconds later you see the smoke coming to you. You're like, crap, here we go again.
But did you ever get to a really nervous point during this whole thing, or did any of y'all?
Did I?
Yeah.
The only time I really got nervous when it jumped that road on the south side of the property. We were done. We done lit everything. We done burned everything. The burn was over. We were just kind of eyeballing it and letting it do its thing. It had gotten to the interior, and Mark and him had come down the road. Him and the other guys that was with us, they had just come down the road. Me and Rob were sitting up there, and we had lit all the backing fires and lit it and ringed it, and we were just sitting up there. We got us some water, and we were just hanging out. And Mark and him pulled up, and we started talking and jee-hawing around, and we were standing there, and I just happened to look and seen smoke, and it looked like it was kind of.
It wasn't where it should have been.
It wasn't where it
was on the south side.
I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, that thing ain't jumped. And we marked him not even a minute. And one of those leaves had picked up.
And it didn't
run back up there, and
it didn't even start a leaf. That's what was crazy, is that leaf that was burning. I think it was the amber out of that tree. I think one of them trees was letting out ambers 30, 40 foot up in the air, and it drifted over, but it landed on a log, and the log caught on fire, and the log started the leaves. And then once it got to that point, we had 3 trees right there that were all on fire. We ended up having to cut all 3 of them down.
One of them was 30-inch diameter tree.
Yeah.
And that's when, Jamie, you had to go get on the skid steer. somebody was on the tractor, somebody's running the chainsaw. It was all hands on deck.
Yeah. You, at that point, you're just trying to get the trees to lay down where they burning so it doesn't jump.
So were you pushing the trees while it was still on fire?
Yeah. You had to.
You don't have a choice, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, that one, I pushed on it.
You're cutting them when they're on.
Yeah, Rob was cutting it because he thought he was standing in the fire ants and looked down, his pants was on fire. But
he told me I owe him a pair of government breeches.
I mean, that's like we cut down several, and you don't think about the inside of that tree burning. You run that chainsaw off in it, man.
It's air and it goes.
It'll burn the crap out of you.
Yeah, because it's spitting that fire out when you come through it. It's blowing the fire out the back end of the saw.
And then you just push it over to the burn side.
Yeah, pushed it to what was already burned, and where it wasn't no fuel around that log.
I think too, that gives you opportunity to see actually how many healthy trees you have. Because some of them trees that were on fire were dead as a doorknob, and we didn't know it.
And that's something people got to understand. We wasn't the trees we want. It's not hot enough. It's not killing them.
It's not hurting the trees.
It's going to blacken the bark up, and that's going to be it. Now we got pointless, useless trees in the middle. Yeah, we want to kill that back so we can get the good trees out.
Well, that was my question to Rob. Is it, and a lot of people, we've seen people make comments when we talk about burning. So why are y'all killing all these trees? You're not killing the healthy trees that you want.
No.
But what we are doing, and like we had issues with not having enough trees to where people wanted to mess with doing a thin on the pines, because it's not just, unless they're down there cutting a bunch of pines, they ain't worth anything.
Yeah.
So you're stuck with this just thick area of pines. And we had an option of trying to go in and hack and squirt them to thin them, or trying to get some kind of machinery in there and do it ourselves, or do a burn. And Rob said the burn is the best way to do it, because what you're going to do, you've got all these little sweet gums and elms and all this stuff that's pulling nutrients out of the big, even in the hardwoods, the big trees that you want, or the pines out of your pine trees. And so these fires will go through there, and they will take out some of these small trees, which does a thinning, and it promotes more growth, and it's better for your trees overall.
Well, it promotes a lot of growth from that tree. The first year you're going to lose, first burn you do ever on a piece of property, you're going to lose some of your trees, and we're not going to lose some of those trees that we burned, or even the little saplings, are not dead.
You're not going to lose healthy trees.
They'll come back up from the roots.
You top kill them. Yeah. So you killed it at the top of it, but it'll re-sprout at the bottom, which is what you want. It's low-growing fruit for the animals. Mm-hmm. Now they got leaves and things like that within, waist high.
Yeah.
That they can...
And cover.
And cover for birds, turkeys, turkey poults, things like that. So you've got a lot of food there lower at the ground where it was 8-10 foot up where they couldn't reach it.
Let's talk about that a little bit more in depth, because like Jamie said, we get a lot of people that, oh man, you're killing all the animals' homes, you're running animals off their property. That's not the case. I mean, no joke. We all witnesses that day. We had turkeys. I'm sure that fire went through the woods and them turkeys got out of there. But before it was still smoking, the turkeys were back in there eating bugs. Mm-hmm. The squirrels, they're up in a big tree. They're not. When we ran one squirrel out, I seen one squirrel run out of a tree, but
Jamie had a swamp rabbit run over him.
Yeah, so I mean, you're going to disperse some animals. That's you're going to disperse the same amount of animals with that fire as if you were walking through those woods by yourself.
They're going to run.
They're going to get away. But guess what? They're going to be right back in there. They're going to have more food, more nutritional. It's a reset.
Oh, within 2 weeks, the ground will be green.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's black right now because it hadn't rained on it. Let this rain today that's coming through be on there and see the change that's going to happen, especially right before springtime. It's going to be a spring green up where you're going to talk about you couldn't plant enough stuff in there. What's going to be green?
So we burned the 50 acres last year. Less than a year later, you cannot tell we burned it.
No.
As far as the amount of
the native vegetation's better.
See, that's the key.
Yeah.
And that's why we did it, is because the biologists come out and then they said, if you would burn this, you're going to wake up that seed bed and let the stuff grow that you want to grow, that's beneficial for the deer, instead of all just this pasture grass that's no nutrients for them.
Yeah. So that's what I was telling you the other day. That guy was, I can't think of his name. I've been watching a bunch of his videos, but no matter how many food plots you put on your property, that's only 10% on average of what that animal eats. Mm-hmm. The other 90% is
what he browses.
All the low hanging stuff it can get to and eat.
Mm-hmm. Natural browse is the best thing
it is.
Deer herd.
What hurt all this, in my opinion, is I mean, it's people, but it's people wanting these pretty plants in their yards, and let's plant these Bradford pears. Let's plant this. And guess what? They're invasive.
Mm-hmm.
They jump over everything. And it doesn't, like, I guarantee you nobody's planted a landscape garden in the middle of that 50 acres since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
But a bird has ate a berry somewhere and dropped a dump right out there. And guess what? You got that tree coming up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's invasive species all over the state. And the only way you're going to control it is things like this to get it back to its natural prairie, what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, because you think about it like the 50 acres is one of the best examples. If you have hay fields or things like that, and a lot of the property you buy, you know, like when you bought that property, it was managed for hay. So they were strictly cutting for hay. Well, we're managing for wildlife. So that's completely different. You have to reset that whole property and make it usable for the wildlife, because just leaving it a hay field is no good for us, what we're doing. So then when you just leave it alone, all that tame grass, Bermuda, Bahia grass, all this pasture grasses that are out there, they're already dominant. So they're not letting anything else through the ground. So they're just sitting out there, you know, and then we got a lot of sage, however you call it, sage
Johnson
grass. You got a lot of Johnson grass, things like that, you know, animals really, it's not really beneficial for them, you know, for them to hide in and stuff like that a little bit.
But then it gets so thick they can't use it.
Yeah. So you leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You start leaving it alone. Now, like Mark's talking about, birds flying over, they're pooping out Bradford pear seeds. You know,
crab
and sweet gums are rolling.
I want to know where sweet
they're
gums
blowing out
come
in
from.
there. So now you got all these invasive trees in there. Now, how do you manage it? If you run a bush hog over, guess what you did? You just
spread
it again.
Yeah, for real.
So they come right back up. They outgrow the trees that you want out there. So when you burn it, and you're pretty much stunting the growth to all of that stuff, and allowing more sunlight to the ground to allow the natural stuff that we want to come up and be competitive with the things that we don't.
The seeds are already there.
Wildflowers for the butterflies, and the bugs, and the turkeys eat the bugs, and, you know, the turkeys are able to get into, you know, that stalky, woodier stuff, you know, and their poults are safe in that stuff, you know, rabbits and everything. It is beneficial for every single wild animal that's out there. The only thing it's not beneficial for is, you know,
the field mice.
The field mice.
They'll be right back
in.
You're not going to stop them. They'll be right back.
They'll run in a hole. They'll get in the ground, and it'll go over top of them.
You look at the property that's got where the sweet gum thickets are, and then you take the place we used to hunt, Stanley's. It had, what was that, river bottom birch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All those places those are at are old garden beds. So why is, like, when you have an old garden or old planted field from 100 years ago, where did all that river bottom birch come from?
It's windblown seeds and birds and things like that.
So does it stay in that, like, because up there it's a perfect square. Like, you can walk up and you can see where the farmer had a square field planted. Why is it just there?
Because there was no competition for it.
Just right there. It's open pasture and it fills it up.
Yeah, it's fast growing invasive trees that, you know, the birds sitting on the edge of the field pooping off the branch, or the wind just blows out there and it settles there. It won't thrive in the woods. Like, you know, if sweet gum seeds blow in the woods, it can't do anything. You know, it's already true.
But it goes out
too much competition.
It will.
You get it on the side of a hill out there.
Somewhere where there's an opening,
and you can't stop
take
it.
Off.
And then all you have is a sweet gum. Like, that's what prime example right down there at the end of the pond levee.
Mm-hmm.
That whole sweet gum thicket, it was probably open garden, or they did something with it back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it grew back, they just let it go, like Mikey's talking about. Then that's what you got.
And then it's
trees so thick you can't
walk through it.
Can't walk, and then they won't get any size because they're all competing against each other, and there's really nothing you could do except try to bulldoze it out, I guess.
The sucky thing about managing is you have to realize what you have to go in and do an assessment of your property and where do I need to start back at zero at, and starting back at zero looks bad because you're just pretty much wiping.
Well, that's what the biologist told us. You know, when we first started, he said, "Y'all want a pretty property or you want a wildlife habitat? You can't have both.
Yeah, you can't have
pretty land usually don't house wildlife.
We ain't making a golf course.
Nope. Yeah, when's the last time? Well, that's not. You can't even say that. 180-inch deer on a golf course. That happens pretty often.
They are, but they're not thriving. They're on the outskirts of it and stuff. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We're not trying to manicure. It ain't the prettiest. Your food plots don't have to be weed free, and and this is a slow thing. You're not gonna this ain't gonna happen overnight. I mean, this is the first burn that we did on the hardwoods and pine since we've had this place. So it's going to take us years to get it exactly the way we want it.
Yeah.
But
it'll probably be like our kids and stuff that see the real benefits of it 15, 20 years from now.
But if you got turkeys within 10 miles of your property and you burn, I promise.
I will say that they love it.
They will be there.
Even the deer come back there.
Yeah.
So y'all rode around. Like, this is one of the things that Mike said he probably wouldn't go sleep because we knew we had burned this stuff and there was still some stuff smoldering. And so, Mark, you and the guys jumped in the buggy.
Yeah.
And y'all would make loops and just look and see what you'd see. And then you took the thermal and you could see the trees that were still on fire with that thermal glowing and stuff. But how many animals did y'all see moving back through?
It was insane. I mean,
They're everywhere.
First, before it got dark, we had turkeys, no joke, scratching and pecking beside a stump that was on fire.
Well, you went through and I was about 2 hours behind you. So total of probably 4 hours after we burned that, it was probably 5 or 6 turkeys up there.
I mean, in the smoke, they didn't care. They knew what was there. They knew it was all those perfectly roasted, medium well ladybugs and stink bugs and beetles and
roasted acorns.
Yeah. So, I mean, they knew. And then that night we were out there and I took the thermal because that's a smart thing to do is you can see the hot spots in the woods where they're burning. So you can check on things. And there was plenty of times we'd look off in the woods and there'd be a tree on fire and there's 15 deer feeding around,
like them acorns.
They know what that is. I mean, it's no different lightning striking it and catching on fire. The animals know what's going on.
It was a natural occurrence too.
Yeah.
Go on this property.
It's natural and it's good for it. Do your research.
So how often should you burn?
Depends on your management program and depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
I mean, I think we'll have to burn.
Rob said we need to burn this fall.
More often just because we're trying to get that crappy stuff out of the way.
Yeah, you're not going to get it on the first.
No.
We didn't get everything.
You're going to stun it, but it's not going to kill it all.
Different times of the year, it is like we're burning. We're just kind of getting fuel and stunting the growth of some of the trees that are out there. But you do a growing season burn, when
that's when you get your stuff.
It has a completely different effect.
Well, that's what Rob told me. He was like, you talk about stunting those 1 inch diameter trees and smaller, top kill them. They're all going to sprout back up. He said that fall burn, that grow season burn, wipe all that out. And that's better than a thinning. And it's cheaper. Yeah. Like if you got it in your budget, you can't get nobody to cut it. Instead of you spending the money to thin your trees and stuff, you can use that fire and it's a lot less expensive to use fire as a management tool. Yeah.
Environmentally is better. I mean, you get somebody out there thinning trees, how much diesel fuel they burning, how much hydraulic fluid.
Erosion and everything else.
Yeah.
How many roots are they cutting for erosion and stuff? Could
we, if we wanted to, go in those pines and hack and squirt every 7 trees and then let them die? And then would it burn those trees up the next burn the following year? Or maybe 2 years from now?
It may take a couple of them, but it'll eventually.
But you're technically thinning it without equipment.
Yeah. That's probably a better way to thin them like that too, because you're minimally invasive to the.
So what was it he said they planted per acre when they plant those trees? Like 130, 120?
Yeah, it was a crazy number.
And if you could get it down to 50 or 60, I think
wanted it less than that.
They wanted it down to 20 acre for the third thinning.
Or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But that's thin.
Yeah, that's pretty thin.
That's
maximizing saw timber. Yeah. We're really not doing that.
We're trying to do habitat.
Yeah.
It was a very, very good weekend. Learned a lot. It's neat to see what it actually like. I understand better what goes on and how to do it. Like I think we've all gotten more comfortable each year doing it for sure. But when you have somebody like Rob that is that passionate about it, that is just a wealth of knowledge, it makes our job a lot easier. We actually look like we know what we're doing.
So in other people's areas, where would be a good resource for them to start if they need help finding somebody to help them with the burn plan program and all that? Like, if everybody in the area, you want to talk to Rob, I'm sure he'd be glad to sit down and talk to you.
I guess you go Forestry Commission, I guess.
Yeah, you want to get your local Forestry Commission involved, and they should have people a list, a
recommended
vendor list or recommendation list or whatever, to be able to help you out.
There are people that do it for you, like these forestry agents, and I think that's what Daniel and them said they had, because they have a timber manager, and that guy does all their stuff, and there's programs out there that you can get in to help you recover some money.
Yeah.
With some of that stuff too. So
I guess your terrain and what you're burning is going to depend on the rate your prescribed burner,
Yeah.
what he's going to charge per acre? Or
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, there's every property's going to be different.
Yeah.
There's not going to be two that are exactly alike. So, but just there are resources out there. You can go probably to your local county extension office or contact your forestry service department.
Yeah,
and look for some insight on it. But it is a great tool if you'll do some research on it. And if you're looking to improve your habitat, fire is one of the best ways that you can improve your habitat.
I mean, we've got videos out there on doing the fire lanes, how we did it, and there should be some videos releasing before too long on us burning and how we executed that. But there's a lot of videos out there that actually show the result of burning like a year or two after that. That's really interesting.
Yep. Well, guys, what's coming up? Anything besides the Beast and Brews we done talked about? We got
a little contest this weekend down at our buddy's camp. Just laid back, good time. We got what's coming up after that other than opening weekend?
That's it. Turkey season, baby. Turkey season. I got my clothes sprayed down with permethrin. They drying right now. I'm going to be tick free. Hopefully, that's the first time I've tried that. I've been seeing everybody talk about it, so I hosed all my stuff that I thought I would wear this turkey season down. I'm going to see if it'll keep the ticks off of me. I need somebody to volunteer not to do it, and let me see how many ticks get on you versus what get on me.
Yeah.
No, that ain't no joke. No, you don't want to get that alpha gal. So everybody out there,
man,
think of that. Man.
Everybody talk about snakes and spiders. Man, I'm more scared of a tick because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's going to be fun. Let us know if y'all go youth hunting this weekend. Send us some pictures in. I'm sure we'll be doing some giveaways for turkey season coming up. We'll come up with another one to
we ended up one, and we're gonna start another one probably in the next podcast.
Yeah, good deal. Well, we've got some stuff we can give away, but take us on out of here, Mark.
Man, we appreciate y'all listening. If y'all got any questions, y'all let us know. Y'all shoot us a message. Y'all check us out on all the platforms. We might have some stuff coming up here in midsummer. We might try to do some shows, hopefully, but we'll see how that goes and keep y'all posted. But hey, let's get out here and get to work. Get ready to get a turkey.
We gone.